Hey there, retail tech enthusiasts. Welcome to the Rising Stars podcast, your go-to source for all things retail technology and the ever-evolving world of point of sale. I'm your host, Kate Orara, Partner Development Manager at Star Micronics, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this exciting journey. Here at Rising Stars, we're not just keeping up with the trends, we're setting them. We dive deep into the tech landscape with global industry leaders, unpacking strategies and discussing the latest innovations that shape the future of retail IT. Whether you're a tech aficionado, a business owner, or just curious about the dynamic world of retail, this podcast is your backstage pass to insider knowledge. And hey, it's not just about the tech, it's about the community. Join me and the Star Micronics team as we lead and innovate, shaping a brighter future for the retail, hospitality, and cannabis industries, as well as beyond. Together, we rise. So hit that subscribe button, stay in the loop, and let's make waves in the retail tech space. This is the Rising Stars podcast, where innovation meets inspiration. Let's rise together. Well, welcome back to Star Micronics Rising Stars podcast, where we dive deep into all things tech, business, and innovation. Today's episode explores an exciting topic that's crucial for businesses: choosing the right point of sale printer technology. Might seem overwhelming and confusing, but don't worry. We're going to break it down into a simple, digestible format for you with some experts from the Star Micronics integration team to help. And so before I dive into today's episode, which will help explain two of Star's printing technologies, SteadyLAN and TetherLAN, let me introduce our guests, Oreo and Josh. And, prior to the podcast, I should have asked you both how to pronounce your last names. Now, Josh, I am also married to a Filipino, so I'm going to take a gander or a quick stab at your name. So Josh Ventocilla.
Not quite.
No. Oh.
No, not quite. So, fun fact with that, in Tagalog or our language, a double L is not a Y sound; it's a LIA sound.
Oh, okay. So Ventocilla.
Ventocilia. Yeah.
Ventocilia. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
missing the I. Okay. So
Yes.
you know what? You learn something new every second.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's okay. It's okay. Everybody calls me by the not understandable, but it's Ventocilia. Yes.
My husband's gonna be so mad at me later. He's like, "Oh, you totally botched that."
Oh no.
Uh, and Oreo, I love your last name, but I do not know. I'm not. So could you please pronounce your full name actually? Because you got we call you Oreo for short. That's not, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not a cookie. It's short for something. So could you pronounce your full name for us?
Yeah, so it's Oreoluwa Akeredolu.
Akeredolu. Okay, I could have done that. It's pronounced how it sounds, but yeah,
Exactly.
both beautiful names, and I love the diversity and culture that we have at Star Micronics. So great to have you both on here today to represent Star and to talk about things. So thank you so much for joining us today. What I would love for both of you guys, both could just take some turns. You can rock, paper, scissors, or go by either first or last name in alphabetical order, whatever you want to do. But if you could both take a moment to just tell us a little bit about yourselves and your roles at Star. Who wants to go first?
I guess
Josh, you could go ahead.
Yes, I'll go first.
Go for it, Josh.
I volunteered as tribute. So yeah, I'm Joshua. I'm an integration account specialist here at Star Micronics, and really my role, right, is I serve as a bridge between the technical integration and sales. And I ensure seamless adoption with Star product solutions by clients and partners. So essentially, right, to kind of sum up that role, it would be me engaging with our customers, building that relationship, and offering client support to make the integration process a lot easier with our products, right? Yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Oreo, you're up now.
Yeah, and I guess my role is just slightly different from Josh in the sense that Josh kind of also deals with the sales aspect of things, right? But mine is well, the official title is the product integration specialist. So mine is more specific to the developers that are integrating our product. So our software vendors, right? So I kind of work with them to provide, just let them know what features our SDKs have, right? So that they can know what exact tool to integrate, right? So mine is more specific to the development aspect of it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for guys for taking time today. And today's episode is kind of inspired by a blog that was written by Brittany DeGroat from our marketing team around SteadyLAN and TetherLAN. And what I thought might be good is to just do a deep dive again in a format that is easy for the non-technical as well as the technical people to understand out there. So I would love if you guys can maybe if you could give kind of a brief overview of the differences between SteadyLAN and TetherLAN technologies for point of sale printers.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that one. So SteadyLAN, right? We'll first start with SteadyLAN. That the focus of SteadyLAN is to for the printer to provide network to the tablet, right? So how that's done is if the setup would include having your printer connected to your router via an Ethernet cable, right? And then your tablet is connected to the back of your printer. You can see that the network flows from the router into the printer up to the tablet, right? So the flow is going from down to up, right? TetherLAN works in opposite, right? Now, data is provided to the printer via the tablet. So the way that works is you take the cellular data on your tablet, right? You connect it to the printer, right? Enabling the TetherLAN function, and now network is provided from that tablet down to the printer. So you can see that they kind of work on opposite. They do both provide network, right? Devices get network. How they're sourcing the network, right? And where it's going is different. Yeah. Mhm.
So in terms of stability and reliability, how do SteadyLAN and TetherLAN compare when it comes to maintaining printer connections in the point of sale environment?
So if we look at the technologies that those two technologies that Star is offering in terms of their reliability, right? So long as the printer is 100% functional, right? We can also guarantee that the technology will be 100% reliable, right? Also, due to the fact that TetherLAN and SteadyLAN work, I mean, the connection between the printer and the tablet is with a USB cable, right? So that even gives you a more reliable connection because, so long as your cables are plugged in tightly on both ends, communication is possible, right? And that data transfer is also possible. So it's safe to say that it's 100% reliable. But one thing to also note, since it's what we're sharing, the data we're transferring is network related, right? That also plays a factor, right? In SteadyLAN, because the original source of that network being shared is your ISP, right? Say like Comcast, right? And that's sharing data to the printer. So if Comcast's network goes down or in your location there's a network outage, right? SteadyLAN can't, override that, right? So if the network goes down for whatever reason, then SteadyLAN would also go down. Same thing for TetherLAN, right? The source of the internet access being shared is your mobile data, right? So if your mobile data goes down, there's nothing to share to the printer. But if all is well and good in terms of like the data is available from your ISP or from your mobile device, the technology itself, SteadyLAN and TetherLAN, are 100% reliable since it's USB cables. I mean, there's the factor that, okay, your USB cable could go bad, right? Don't let us ignore that. But so long as your USB cable is good, SteadyLAN and TetherLAN will work reliably.
Okay. So are there maybe any specific use cases or industries where one technology, SteadyLAN or TetherLAN, tends to outperform or maybe more preferential than the other?
Um, Yeah, Kate, I think you hit it there. It's preferential, right? Remember, on the last question that I answered, right? We talked about the differences, right? And how the network flows from printer to tablet, or tablet to the printer, right? And I think that's key there, right? So in terms of industries where SteadyLAN is preferential or preferable to TetherLAN, right? This is the industries or places where your point of sale is being used in maybe like retail spaces, right? Retail spaces inside buildings where you have access to network via a router, right? Maybe you have multiple Ethernet ports inside the building and you have stationary point of sale systems where you just need to place it there, right? If your tablet then is receiving some sort of like interference or weak Wi-Fi signal strengths, right, it's probably beneficial to use the SteadyLAN and connect it to the back of the printer so you'll have a more stable connection, right? All right, so with TetherLAN, right, this time now we're using cellular data. So industries maybe outside, right, where you don't necessarily rely on being inside where you have to have that Wi-Fi, right? If your printer, if you're experiencing Wi-Fi dropout and you feel like maybe your service provider is their signal or their Wi-Fi is not as strong as your cellular data, maybe it's a good idea to use cellular network, right, from the tablet connected to the printer, so that you'll have a stable connection going on from there too. Offers also, right, one is more stationary than the other. With TetherLAN, because you're relying on the cellular network, now you have movements, right? You can possibly place your printer and your tablet better as opposed to just having it in a like a single setup, right? On a location, right? It gives you flexibility. That's what it does. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and
So go ahead, Oreo. I'm sorry.
I was gonna just piggy off of what Joshua said with TetherLAN, right? We kind of envision TetherLAN in like an outdoor space, right? Where there's no way to, I mean, it's technically possible, but it's not advisable to run like 100-foot Ethernet cable outdoors to where your printer is gonna be. So if it's like a what are they called? The Is it a food market?
A
Yeah, I
food
can't
truck.
remember.
Actually, that's I was thinking like food trucks where
Right.
they're moving around and they're a lot of times they're using cellular data
Yeah.
Right.
transactions.
Exactly.
Right. So you're outside, there's nowhere to run an Ethernet cable from. So you can just rely on your phone because everyone has uh, data on their phone in this day and age. Right. So you can just share that data with the printer and be able to create that local network between your point of sale on the tablet and the printer.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so food trucks and outdoor farmers markets.
Yeah. There
Actually,
you
it's
go.
funny. I was at a trade show in Oklahoma City last year, and right across the street was a farmers market. It was where they had a bunch of just like little vendors, little tents where you could get like locally made beef jerky or produce or just fun little stuff, like they had baked goods and soaps and stuff like that. And actually, I did see a lot of Star products over
Yeah.
there. So they're probably using that TetherLAN right there.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious though, because there are a lot of existing retailers and restaurants and whatnot that are out there. And so maybe you could explain a little bit about how SteadyLAN and TetherLAN could incorporate with existing point of sale systems and networks.
Right. So from the network point of view, right, for both SteadyLAN and TetherLAN,
Mhm.
right, because I mean, in SteadyLAN, the printer is just sharing whatever network it's getting,
Mhm.
right? So if your existing point of sale, you already run Ethernet cables to uh, the station, right? Then once the printer is plugged in, it shares that same internet access or network that it's getting with your tablet. And then I think TetherLAN is easier to integrate TetherLAN anywhere because it's like your tablets to data, right? So you're not relying on uh, a cable that's already run. So there's no cables involved. So it's like it can be anywhere physically. You can place that device in there and then just share the data with the printer. In terms of with existing point of sales, right? We have a lot of cloud print ISVs out there, right, that could want to offer these technologies. Because like we said, with TetherLAN, if you're outdoors, there's no way to run an Ethernet cable in. But if you take advantage of TetherLAN, then that existing point of sale that uses our CloudPrint SDK can continue to work without you changing anything on the back end of your application. Because CloudPrint just needs internet access, and that's what your phone with TetherLAN is providing to the printer. And so the printer can now communicate with the server. So there's nothing the ISV needs to do, right? Which is, I think, the kind of like the key thing to point out with these two technologies, SteadyLAN and TetherLAN. These are printer features, right? So your existing point of sale that uses our SDK doesn't need any modification to work with these two technologies that the printer provides.
Okay, and now that you're kind of leaning into the software vendor side of things, what factors that maybe software vendors that wish to integrate with Star consider when they're deciding between the two technologies for their printer setups with their software?
That's a good question. So the two factors in mind, right, that we got would be integration and your environment. So earlier, Oreoluwa mentioned, right, some of our SDKs being used. For SteadyLAN, right, if you are using some of our native SDKs, but you are experiencing some sort of a Wi-Fi dropout, right, and you're within a space where you're inside retail where you do have access to Wi-Fi network, right? And then you're experiencing that dropout, you want to stabilize your connection, then go ahead and use SteadyLAN, right? and then with CloudPrint, right, where now printer and device, right, the printer doesn't know what kind of data it's receiving, if that's like based on ISP provider, whether that's inside or outside, it doesn't matter. Because with CloudPrint, at least you just need some sort of network to communicate with your CloudPrint server, right? So as long as you don't need to specify whether or not you're inside or outside, go ahead and use that cellular data and take advantage of our TetherLAN feature, right, for the printer. So that's the case with the integration, and also your environment. Understand your setup and how your end users are going to be using your point of sale system, right? And I think that's going to be good. So let's say you're most likely able to utilize SteadyLAN in inside places, right? But again, going back to the Wi-Fi dropouts, we don't know. There's external factors, the location of the spot you're setting up for, right? Maybe the construction of the building is causing some sort of a dropout and Wi-Fi is unstable, go ahead, plug it into the back of the printer, right? So you can get that stable connection. And then going back to again earlier where we mentioned that outside places, right, such as like food trucks, marketplaces, right, those are areas where you don't necessarily have easy access to a router. You don't have like 1,000 feet cable, right, extending to an outside area, right, especially if you're in food trucks or places where you just need to have, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 of those extending. That's probably not possible, or you don't prefer that, right? So in outside environments, it's best to use TetherLAN in this case, right? You get rid of the cable, and also if you're always on the go, right, where food trucks are always not being in a stationary place, they're always on the go, rely on that cellular network and use the TetherLAN, right? So yeah, understanding where your point of sale will be used and how they will be used, and I think is the two things with the integration and the environment. Yeah.
Right. I think I would also just say for ISVs to kind of like I think I mentioned earlier, in terms of like from an integration standpoint, right? Nothing needs to change in terms of like your code or your application, right? So I think ISVs just really need to be aware of that factor, and then just kind of understand these two technologies that the printer offers, right? So that you could, because it's going to be like on a case by case basis, right? Because the software is provided in general to the public, right? But then each end user that wants to use the your software then presents you with a scenario that, oh, your software that I want to use, I'm going to be in the woods, right, in a remote location, right, and I don't have internet access. So how can I use your software still? And if they're aware that, okay, the printer you have offers TetherLAN, right, supports TetherLAN, then they can be like, oh, you can just share your cellular data, right? You can, I mean, if you don't have a MiFi with you, just share your cellular data with the printer. So long as ISVs are aware that our printers offer these two technology options, they can then, on a case-by-case basis with the end users, recommend the best fit for them.
You guys mentioned a couple of times, and this is probably something that we would have to maybe do in a different episode, or I think I've already done one, but you mentioned cloud print a couple of times. And just in case, I know what cloud print is, but there are some people that may be listening that may not be aware of it. So could you maybe give like a quick overview of what cloud print is and its relation to SteadyLAN or the printing technologies?
Yeah, so with Cloud Print, it's kind of like a RESTful API, right? For developers, they'll kind of understand what RESTful API means in the sense that for the way Cloud Print works, right, and communicating with the printer, it's all cloud-based, right? So the printer isn't directly talking to the tablet that you have or the iPad or whatever device your application is running on, right? So you're hosting there's a server in the cloud, right? That your print jobs, right? The data you want to print is being sent to. And then the printer itself is also talking to that server. So on the printer side, you're provided with the endpoint, right, to communicate with, and then the printer is talking to that server constantly. Right? And so if there's anything in the server for the printer, it's going to pull it down and print it. Right? That's why we mentioned that for Cloud Print, it just needs internet access to the printer. It doesn't have to be on the same network as the tablet because both are talking to external locations, which is the server. Right? So Cloud Print is the tablet sends a job to the server, the printer is also talking to the server and it pulls it down. So Cloud Print allows you to print from anywhere in the world. So like your tablet can be here in New Jersey and the printer is all the way in Miami and the printer will print the job that the tablet sends, right? So Cloud Print you kind of see it a lot in like the online ordering space, but we've also kind of been introducing it to ISVs that you can use it in that retail or point of sale space as well, right? So that everything is cloud-based and you can easily manage your application or expand your software solution.
Mhm.
So, are there any limitations or drawbacks associated with either SteadyLAN or TetherLAN that software vendors should be aware of?
Yeah, so well, I rather than call them drawbacks, I'll just be kind of say what ISV should be aware of when offering the solution to
Sure.
their end users is that for SteadyLAN, right? I mean, it's available on both iOS and Android, right? It works with both iOS and Android rather, because it's a printer feature, so it's supported on both iOS and Android with our MC Print 3 and 2 printers, right? But for right now, TetherLAN is only available on Android with our MC label printer. So that's one thing ISV should be aware of. Or if the end user doesn't have the MC label, TetherLAN wouldn't be available to them, right? But the MC label supports both SteadyLAN and TetherLAN, right? But TetherLAN will only work on Android. Another thing to note is the firmware version for the hardware. I believe on the MC Print 3s, you have to have a firmware version of 2.3 or higher, right? So if your printer has a lower firmware, you wouldn't be able to use that feature. I mean, granted, all you need to do is upgrade the firmware, right? It's not like you need to buy a new printer. You just need to update the firmware of the printer and the technology becomes available to you, right? So these are, I mean, they are at least for the firmware version, it's a drawback, but it's something that can be easily overcome, right? By just updating the firmware of the printer. I think another thing to note with TetherLAN, if you're using TetherLAN, because most people using tablets expect that the printer will charge the tablet, but if you're using TetherLAN, you wouldn't be able to charge uh, the tablet. But if you're using SteadyLAN, you are still able to charge the iPad or Android tablet while using SteadyLAN. And I think one other thing is if you're using TetherLAN, it creates a local network between the printer and the tablet. So even though it's a USB cable, communication, like your print job, if you're sending it with the SDK, is not happening via the USB. It's happening over the network, right? So even though there's a USB cable connected, you're not communicating or sending the print jobs via USB. Only data is being shared via USB. And I think one other thing to note with TetherLAN, right, is because TetherLAN uses the USB tethering feature of your Android device. I know USB tethering is only available on Android 9.0 and above, right? So the tablet being used by or phone being used by the end user has to have Android 9.0 or higher. And usually with USB tethering, right, if you unplug the USB cable or turn off like the phone, it disables, right? It automatically turns off that USB tethering. So when you plug it back, you have to enable on the phone or tablet again, right? So that might be something end users are not aware of in terms of, oh, at the end of the night, they turn off the printer, turn off the phone, and then they come in the next day and it doesn't like immediately start working, right? Because you haven't enabled tethering on your phone again.
So maybe looking towards the future, do you anticipate any advancements or innovations on SteadyLAN or TetherLAN technology that could further enhance their capabilities for point of sale systems?
So right now, one of the other drawbacks to SteadyLAN, right, is that the the sharing speed for data on with SteadyLAN, the speed at which data is shared from the printer to the iPad or tablet, I believe is 1 megabits per second, right? And usually, if you're on Wi-Fi or connected directly with Wi-Fi to your ISP, you can see speeds way greater than that, right? And that's just right now is the limitation of the printer itself that it can only share at 1 megabits per second. But that's something that we're actively working on to increase that speed so that there's no delay in the rate at which your application is working on the iPad. So if it's a web-based application, you want things to load as quick as possible, right? So we're trying to increase the bandwidth that the printer is sharing so that it can be as quick as just your regular Wi-Fi at the store. And I think for TetherLAN, right, like I mentioned before, it's only available on Android devices right now. So that's one other area we're looking to branch into iOS, right? Apple has a lot of restrictions, but we're actively working with them to try to get TetherLAN available on iOS devices as well.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked that you guys think that people need to know about when it comes to SteadyLAN and TetherLAN, or do you think we covered just about everything?
I mean, I think we covered pretty much everything. That's as much as we could provide for you the information, right? And again, you know, we're here to help, right? So if there's something that maybe that we didn't cover that's probably outside of this podcast, that question, right? I mean, reach out to integrations team. We're here to help. So make sure that we provide the right product for your business or product, the right solution for your business, right? We love understanding your applications, guys. This helps us improve on our technology, right? How it's being used. I mean, we love it all. So please reach out. We want to make sure you guys get right with Star.
Absolutely. We'll provide the contact information for both Josh and Oreo in the show notes. So thank you guys so much for your time. There you have it. Whirlwind tour of the ins and outs of choosing between SteadyLAN and TetherLAN for the point of sale printer application of your choice. Whether you're prioritizing speed and reliability or flexibility, adaptability, rest assured, there is a solution out there that suits your needs. So before you make your decision, be sure to weigh your options carefully. Consider the unique requirements of your business, or like Josh said, just contact us. Let us discuss your needs. We'll help you in selecting the correct technology to make sure that your business, your customers are successful and efficient. So again, a huge thank you to Oreo and Josh for their time with us and for sharing their knowledge on these two printing technologies so we understand them better. Be sure to check out our website, starmicronics.com, which is, again, where I mentioned the blog post earlier. That's where you can find more information, and you can actually subscribe to our informational blog for more insights. But until next time, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Right.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Rising Stars podcast. A huge thanks to our incredible listeners for tuning in and to our phenomenal guests for sharing their insights. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, leave us a review. Let us know what you want to hear more about. Give us your feedback because it fuels our journey to bring you the best in retail technology. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes content. As we sign off, remember the future of retail technology is in our hands, and together, we're shaping it. Keep innovating, keep rising, and until next time, this is Kate Orara signing off. Together, we rise.